Hey, this is Jon the Magic Guy coming to you with a special interview. We have Johannes from Reykjavik, Iceland, and he's a star, I'm going to say star, of Game of Thrones. He was on the past two episodes.
That sounds nice.
Yeah. Well, you are actually, I was looking at your IMDb page, and you do have quite a resume, over 20 plus movies, and you're
Yeah.
headlining in a lot of them. So, what a thrill it is. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Well, it's my pleasure, John. Thank you for having me. Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this now for about 10 years. It was only about 2 years ago since I started doing like international stuff. Before that, it's all pretty much Icelandic stuff.
Yeah, I didn't recognize any of the movies on
No.
IMDb. Is there one that you are particularly proud of and that we could check it out and that might play over into the
Yeah,
North
well, the
American?
one that kind of got me representation in America and the UK, and then got me ultimately the international gigs, is a film called Black's Game, which came out in 2011, I believe. That was a real game changer for me, not only career-wise, also just uh, life-wise. I really had to get into shape for that. I lost about 20 kilos,
Is that the
which,
one where you shaved your head?
yeah,
Það
yeah.
bara snillt. Fá einhvern gæja eins og þig inn í þetta sem eru búin að þekkja fyrir öður. Getur alveg trist. Fucking kafti! Sásökin er fullnæging! Þetta er ráð! Þetta er ekki peningar. Þetta snýst ekki fucking peninga, fattar það ekki? Djöfullinn!
Oh, is that Tim Hortons?
That's a Tim Hortons, direct from
Oh, I
Canada, my friend.
love Timmy's.
I saw on your Instagram, I believe, that you were in Vancouver not so long ago.
Yeah,
Is
yeah, I
that right?
just got back. I was there for like 3 months.
Were you
I
shooting some?
love Timmy's. We don't have Timmy's. We don't have Starbucks. We don't have McDonald's, which is, it's fine, but I like Timmy's.
Yeah, you're lucky you don't have McDonald's. Let's say your kids will grow up healthy.
Yeah, well, we had one or two, but then they closed down a few years ago. It just didn't work out.
Now, I saw on the IMDb page that you were in Noah. It said uncredited, but you played Cain. Was that in the first little segment where Russell's talking about creation?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
that
were
was
one of the fighters?
well, we filmed a whole sequence. That's the thing. They shot the film in Iceland, and Darren Aronofsky, the director, he came here and he was looking for actors to be Cain and Abel and Adam and Eve and a couple of parts warriors and stuff. And I did like a casting thing for that. I showed up like 3 times, and the third time I met with Darren, and which at the end of that he said, "Great, let's do this. You're gonna." He was so American about it. He said, "You're gonna play the father of evil."
Father of Evil.
Yeah, it's a guy that does the first murder, Cain, the father of evil. So I was very excited about that. And then we shot the film. I met Anthony Hopkins on set, and we did the whole sequence where I'm standing looking at my brother, feeling all jealous. I creep up behind him. We have this fight scene. We have these close-ups with me with the rock beating him and then walking off to the sunset. None of that is in the film. None of it.
No, it's just like your shadow in.
Yeah, yeah. It's only one. It's a fraction of a second, and it's a silhouette. It's the just when I punch him in the face. That's all that's in the film. But yeah, there was a whole sequence we did. But it was a nice. I still, the experience is still there, so that was good.
Yeah, well, let's move on to Game of Thrones. Um, how did I assume that you had an agent or a manager, and they got a casting call and hooked you up with this? Is that
Yeah,
and what's the process like? Did you have to send a video, or did you just go in and
yeah, yeah. Well, it's so great for us Scandinavian actors and actors who are not based in New York, LA, or London to be able to do these self tapes because it's a real window for us into working internationally. And And yeah, I mean, everything happens through your representation. You can't really get into projects unless you have agents. So yeah, from that film, Black's Game, and I did Noah. Then I got representation in America, started doing things, and I got a show called AD, The Bible Continues, which was on NBC last year. That was my first thing. Off that, I got an agent in the UK, and he got me the audition for Game of Thrones. And it was as simple as that. It was just another email, can you tape for this guy? And it was a pretty short tape. And 2 days later, he asked me how tall I was. He said, "How tall are you?" Sent me an email. And I'm like, "I'm 6'1". And he replied, "Perfect."
Perfect.
And then later that day, "You've been offered the role." So, I
So
get,
so a relatively short process, just a few days.
Yeah, it was just the one tape, and I got cast.
So from that, they flew you to Belfast. You did your filming in Belfast, right?
Yeah, I did it in it was a lot of trips. I mean, it's one sequence in Ep 7 and then the one scene in Ep 8, which is 2 days of filming. But it was 5 trips. First, I went just for a fitting, and it's a direct flight, so it's pretty easy. I went in there for a fitting, which is just a day, and then they called me back just to try on the boots. And it was 5 minutes. I remember the driver being just outraged at the whole thing. I flew from Iceland. He picked me up at the airport. I drove to costumes, tried on the boots. They fit. He drove me back to the airport, and I flew back home.
So that's like a 8-hour excursion for
Yeah,
a couple thousand euros cost to get you to try on some boots. That's
yeah, to
awesome.
try on the boots. And which is kind of silly because in the scene, I'm not wearing my custom made boots. I'm wearing the hounds, which were custom made for him because he has to put it on. So and then I went for horse riding lessons for 3 days, and then filming, again. So quite a few trips.
So from the time that you got the part to the time you finished filming, what's that, a couple months?
Yeah, a couple of months, yeah.
And you had to keep a tight lip on this whole thing because you knew you were going to be Lem Lemoncloak, right? So did they sign
Yeah.
you to some sort of disclosure agreement?
Oh yeah. They make you sign all sorts of things, and then they're very secretive. They're so secretive that your call sheets they have like black lines just all over them, and all you see is like your time. This is when you're picked up.
Yeah, that's when I told my buddies that I was doing this interview with you. They said, "Oh, you got to ask him about Lady Stoneheart and this." And I'm saying he doesn't know anything other
That's the
than what
thing.
we know from the books. They're not going to tell him anything. My
And
hope of hopes is that in episode 10 of this season, we might get a little glimpse of Lady Stoneheart, and they might have a flashback scene where you are featured in it. But that's just high hopes. Um,
yeah, but that's the thing. It's very much on a need to know basis. And I mean, I didn't get like the full episode script. I only got my pages. And the Hound was called Harlan in the script. I had no idea who that was.
and they had you under a different name too, like
Yeah, Lachlan.
Lachlan. That's right.
And the thing is, because at the end of Ep 7, you see what we did to those villagers, but you don't see. We do it off screen. You don't see us do it.
Right.
But I got my pages, and then I got the pages for Ep 8, and I was like talking to the director, like, what did I do? Did I do anything? And he was like, "Oh yeah, there is this whole thing at the end where you actually go and." So I didn't even know that we even did something because
Yeah. Oh, by
I
the
didn't.
way, you just slaughtered 50 people.
Yeah,
Pretend that you're upset
exactly.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a neat scene. The Hound is one of my favorite characters, and Ian McShane is one of my favorite actors. So you kind of crossed two off the ticket list there for me.
Yeah.
That must have been a pretty neat thing. You were on for the 2 episodes. You said 2 shooting days, but
Yeah.
I've been involved with film myself, and I know that every scene takes hours and hours and hours.
Oh yeah.
You must have been hanging in that harness for a
Oh
long.
God, yeah. That was actually, I mean, that was one of the worst days of my life. It's so uncomfortable because you have that harness and they make it so tight over your shoulder and through your crotch because it can't bulge when you're hanging on that wire. And I saw they digitally removed the wire, of course, but it has to be so tight, and it's under your costume. So it takes about 15 minutes to loosen it up and then 15 minutes to get it back on. So they can't really be doing that through the whole day.
Yeah.
I did get a break during lunch, but other than that, it was a 10-hour shoot for that scene where I'm just standing there. And I remember after like 4 hours, I just started hating the whole thing. I was like, fuck this shit, like
Like
Game of
Game of
Thrones, my
Thrones.
ads, just stick it up your ass.
George R. R. Martin, you asshole.
Yeah, just fuck you guys. And it really wore off, the whole glimmer of being in Game of Thrones. And that night I was just exhausted of standing in that harness, and I was hurting all over, and I just went to sleep in my hotel room. But it was good to get out of it.
Yeah, but now you're like, oh, it's totally worth it. That was.
Oh, absolutely. But in the moment it was quite.
You have to suffer for your art.
Yeah.
We all do, right? It's very hard for me to find somebody's card every once in a while when I do a magic trick, so I can relate.
Yeah, I'm so fascinated by magicians. I have a book like this thick on magic tricks, and that's one of my. I always wanted to do that stuff, and I've learned some basic, simple things. And my God, I have really much respect for you guys who just really go out, because it's so much work. Because I've tried it. I've tried to master these card tricks, and I've spent so many hours trying to do it, and I just can't. I'm not there yet, and I say yet because it's an ongoing process. Maybe someday in the future, but just wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can pick up and do right away, and it'll be super easy. But the good stuff, it really does take time. I always say that I've put in more time studying magic than a doctor does medicine. So
I buy that.
Magic. I've been doing it since I was 10, so and professionally for about 15 years. But who cares about me, sir?
I do. I love magic.
Well, then I'm going to do a specific Game of Thrones magic trick that I'm going to throw onto this video when I put it on YouTube, so you can promote the hell out of it and get me some followers and all that stuff. And I will, if we'll talk afterwards, but I will happily send you some DVDs and some beginner's magic tricks and stuff like that you can get you started.
Like that.
What else did I have to say? The whole process, it must be such a thrill because Game of Thrones has turned out to be like the biggest television show ever. Highest production values, best acting, best story and everything. And now you're a part of this for history. That's pretty ominous, actually.
It is. I'm very grateful for it, and I know it's special, and I knew it going in, and I know it now, and I'm really thankful for it, and it's amazing. And I didn't give it a chance because my wife is like an avid reader of the books, and she loved the show. And I remember when she started watching it when it first came out, she was like, "Come on, watch it with me." And I remember I watched the first scene in the first ep, the one that comes before the da 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 da.
We meet the White Walkers the first time.
Yeah, the White Walkers, and I didn't like it. I was like, "Oh my God, some zombie shit. I'm not gonna watch it." And I walked away, and I didn't watch it. I didn't read the books, and it wasn't until much later that I got into it. And I hadn't seen the show at all when I got cast. I knew of it, of course, but then they were like, "You're gonna be in it." Holy shit! And I watched it in like 3 weeks. I watched every episode, and my wife watched it with me, which was good because sometimes you get confused.
Yes, like, it's good to have somebody who knows the books with you there.
Yeah. And she was like, "No, that's that," and I was reading all about Lemoncloak, and then I got the script, and like, wow, they're leaving out a whole bit, and the Lady Stoneheart thing. I thought for sure they were going to do that, but no such thing.
Yeah, that last episode, the one where you were well hung. It sort of crushed a lot of the fan theories that are out there. Clegane Bowl was supposed to be happening, but they called off Trial by Combat. Lady Stoneheart.
Is that? I really hope we get to see that. I mean, they can't be keeping the mountain there just as an extra. They have to do Clegane Bowl.
Now you did some of your training with the mountain, right? In Belfast, I saw a picture of you guys all out drinking together.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's just because we're both Icelandic. We just met in the lobby like, we should have dinner because we're Icelandic. We didn't know each other, but that's what Icelandic people do when they meet. in foreign countries because there's so few of us.
And he's played off to be this huge guy, but in the picture, you're not that much shorter than him, maybe just a couple inches shorter. So it must.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think, yeah, well, I'm a pretty tall guy, but he's huge.
You're about 3 feet less wide than him. He's just this massive hulk of a man. Is that him still in the monster zombie mountain?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was complaining about the helmet. It's really hurting his face. And he was being a bit of a... No, I'm not going to say it. No, but the helmet hurts.
Yeah, don't call the mountain a pussy. That's not right.
No, I can't do that because he's not. But he can't take it off himself. That's the whole thing. He was saying, between takes, I would like them to rush more, helping me with the helmet off.
This thing off my head.
Yeah.
So I was looking again on your IMDb page, and it looks like you've got a movie coming out next year called The Coldest City. And that's starring James McAvoy and Charlize Theron and John Goodman. That's pretty cool. It's like a British spy film shot in Germany. Yeah. Is that right?
Well, no, it's set in Germany, but it was shot in Budapest. And it happens in 1989 during the week of the wall coming down. And it's not about that. It just happens to be like a backdrop of the story, and it's really cool. It's such a cool little spy film. It's great.
Do you play a villain or a good guy?
Well, he's close. He's a kindred spirit to Lemoncloak, to put it that way. He's Russian as well. They do like to have their villains Russian.
And do you have anything else that you're working on that you can tell us about? You were hinting at something on Twitter that you're not allowed to talk about, big things coming.
Oh, yeah. Well, they just offered me a series. I'm going to be on a TV show, which is a pretty big one. I mean, not as big as Game of Thrones, and I'm just waiting for, they've offered the role. I'm just waiting for dates and the deal, and I'm refreshing my email, every 10 minutes about that. So
an American TV show or an Icelandic one?
No, it's not an Icelandic one. It's okay.
I don't want to press you hard. Okay, I won't push you.
Yeah.
So all in all, I came across you. You commented on my friend's Twitter post, and then I sort of forced you into, being my friend and getting to know me more. But you seem like a totally genuine guy on Twitter. You answer everybody. I would love to promote your Twitter, but I would also hate to butcher your name. So why don't you go ahead and promote yourself here? You're on Twitter at...
Oh, yeah. Well, it's starting to become almost a full-time job answering on Twitter because I have this thing. I decided, you know what, I'm just going to answer everybody. And it's 2-3 hours a day now. And I'm totally fine with that because it's just people who are interested in something that you were a part of or are doing. And why wouldn't I answer? It just seems rude not to.
You get a little shit, though, for, you're teasing us with Lady Stoneheart and what?
Yeah,
you're trolling us and stuff like that. I don't listen to those assholes.
They seem pretty fine with it now since I filmed the scene from the book. They're pretty pleased.
She don't speak. Your bastards cut her through too deep for that. But she remembers. What do you say, milady? See one of them.
So yeah, if anyone wants to find me on Twitter, they're more than welcome. I think it's just Johannes Haukur. If you can figure out a way to spell that,
I'll put it down in the description of the video, and I will tweet it out myself when I tweet out the video. This is great. Thank you for joining us, or joining me, I guess.
Well, my pleasure.
We're going to have you on a couple podcasts. I'm going to throw you on YouTube. You're gaining Twitter followers like mad. When I got to know you a week ago, you had 1,000 something. Now you're up to 4,000, 5,000.
Yeah.
You're a superstar, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Well, it's my pleasure, John. Absolutely.
Well, thanks again, and I hope you have nothing but success in your future.
Thank you. You too.